Alrighty, this is Brian and Nick here from Co-op Critics for our weekly segment that we like to call Party Chat, and today the chat is about the game that we have been playing for a couple of weeks now, and you've probably seen a couple of videos on the YouTube channel for, and that is 7 Days to Die. And Nick, this was your pick. How did you decide that we were going to play 7 Days to Die after we finished The Forest, which we absolutely loved?
So I think it was just because I've watched a bunch of other YouTubers that I follow play this game, and I've been following it like kind of on and off for a while. And some of the videos I saw were of the older version when it first came out, and the crafting system was very different. It was more like a Minecraft style crafting system,
right,
where you have to place the items individually in the boxes to figure out the crafting recipes. And that interested me, but I knew that would just frustrate you for the most part because you don't like that kind of depth when it comes to the actual crafting and stuff.
Well, I mean, you're right in the sense that I like Minecraft. I loved the crafting stuff in The Forest, which I would say is crafting light. But I was not a fan of the crafting system in Ark. I thought it was just way too cumbersome. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like where there's so many materials and there's so many different, recipes and menus that you have to go through and stuff like that. I'm a fan of that stuff being a little bit more streamlined.
Right. And so I actually downloaded it. It was on a Steam sale or something. And I was like, I'll just buy it and I'll try it out. So I bought it. I played for about an hour by myself, and the first thing I noticed was that the UI was completely different. The user interface was much more streamlined and much more in line with, like crafting-wise, was just way easier to follow. You weren't having to figure out recipes. The recipes were there, and it just told you what materials you needed. And just the game seemed a lot more polished than previous videos that I had seen.
Right.
And so I was kind of enjoying playing it. But I played it for about an hour by myself and then kind of put it to the side. Well, we were having so much fun playing The Forest that when we finished, we were like, okay, let's find another survival horror game.
Co-op game, yeah.
Yeah, co-op game that we can play together just because we enjoyed The Forest so much. And immediately 7 Days to Die popped in my head. And yeah, we're having a blast playing it. It's a lot of fun.
It's a ton of fun, dude, and I love the general premise of it, which is that every 7 days, when the sun goes down, you will get attacked by a horde of zombies that is exponentially greater than anything that you've seen before. And so there's this built-in tension to the game of, like, the second you pop in, you're on the countdown clock to the first time that you're going to have to face this horde. And I would assume that as time goes on, the hordes get worse and worse and worse, and you have to get better and better and better in terms of what your skills are and the types of dwellings that you're building and the types of fortifications that you're putting out there and stuff like that. So in addition to doing the whole exploring and looting stuff and crafting new things and finding recipes and all that kind of stuff and surviving, you have this impending doom that resets every 7 days.
Right, and unlike The Forest, which is terrifying in its own right. Like,
for sure.
For you to be out in the woods in the dark and then all of a sudden there's, 12, 15 cannibals surrounding you. That's legitimately scary. Unlike that, though, once you get to your base in the forest, like, you're kind of safe for the most part. Or like right. You can do what we did at the very beginning, which you just build a little tree base, and they can't climb ropes and they can climb trees, but they're not going to climb up into your base. Right. Your biggest fear is that they destroy your drying rack or something.
Yeah, exactly. You got to build something over again.
Yeah, in 7 Days to Die, they can destroy anything if there's enough of them and they do enough damage to it. So, like, you're not really safe just fortifying a building. You can't just build a simple box house and then just fortify it, because eventually there's going to be enough zombies that you can't keep repairing it, and they're just going to eat through that, and you're trapped in there, and you're basically gift wrapping yourself for all the zombies.
What I like about it is that basically it doesn't matter what the material is, it has like hit points, and
right.
They're just going to do damage against the overall hit points of whatever it is that they're smashing up against. And so That could be wood. It could be iron. It could be rock. It does not matter. As you said, the more of them there are and the more damage that's being done, eventually they're going to eat through whatever it is that they're coming up against, which is a bit counterintuitive because you're thinking like, oh, if I, get high up in a house or if I get into a basement that's fortified with stone or something like that won't be a problem. There's not a lot that's safe from these guys. Oh, the first thing that we tried was like going back to the forest. We were like, oh, we'll just go in the water, because in the forest, every time we went in the water, those things would run in 3 steps and then they'd run back out. And so anytime we were in real trouble or real danger, we would just run into the water and eventually we would be safe. Here, our very first thought, hey, let's go out into the water. And you notice immediately like, oh no, the zombies will just follow you out in the water and kill you there.
Exactly. Yeah, just go in the water where it's harder for you to defend yourself.
Yeah, right.
Because you're having to swim and swing a
to you
bat.
As opposed to them.
Right. It's actually more dangerous because you can't run. But the other thing, and we haven't really encountered this yet, but I'm sure we will, there's actual support and gravity and all these systems and everything in place when you're building. And so theoretically, if we were to build a building and it was 2 stories, so we could get on the top floor. Well, if they took enough of the walls out beneath us, the entire building would collapse.
Right.
And so that hasn't happened to us yet, but that's something you have to keep in mind when you're building a base. Like you can't just say, oh, I'll just build my fort on stilts and then I'll climb up there and they can't get to me. No, if they start breaking one of the support beams and they break through it, your base could collapse, or at least a part of your base could collapse.
Yep.
And not only will you fall down there and probably die, anything that you have resting on wooden blocks or blocks, whatever, material blocks they are, like let's say you have a storage chest on there, it breaks as well. So anything you have resting on there will also break. So you really have to be smart about how you're building your base and how you're fortifying it. They can climb ladders, and there's things called spider zombies that can climb the side of buildings. So yeah, we're still noobs, but we're having to learn as we go and try to figure out, okay, that doesn't work. It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, and I think the gameplay is solid and it's a lot of fun, which makes up for the fact that it's not the prettiest looking game in the world. It's certainly not visually on par with The Forest. Now, granted, I'm not running it at the highest possible settings. You're probably running it at better settings than I am because my computer isn't as good as the one that you have. However, the archery feels really good. I like the way the archery works. The crafting menus are not super tough to navigate. The way that the campfire works, the way that the forge works, all of that kind of stuff works pretty well and is fairly streamlined. So I don't feel like I'm hunting through crazy menus. One of the things I like is that like when you click on a particular material, you'll have the choice of interacting with whatever it is. So if it's a yucca fruit, you can eat it, you can drop it, or you could see what recipes are available with it. And so it gives you a menu from the actual item itself, as opposed to you having to go through some other way to find out like, oh, what can I make with this thing? When you click on the thing, it will tell you what you can make with it. And that, to me, I like that. A lot of the things on the map, to me, to the menus, to me, feel very much more intuitive than some of the other survival crafting games that we've played. And that contributes to the fun for me. I don't feel frustrated by those menus.
Right. And that's one of the things that when I looked back at it and I realized how much they'd streamlined the UI, that's one of the things that drew me to it, because I was like, okay, this is not going to be as frustrating to play as some of the earlier versions of the game seemed to be, because I would watch other YouTubers play it and I could tell that they were having to do a lot of research before they played it. They're like, okay, according to the wiki, this is how you do this, or according to the the internet, this is how you craft this. And so I didn't want us to have to do that, because I wanted us to try to be able to figure it out on our own for the most part. Now, there are some things that that we've looked up, and some things that you guys as viewers have recommended to us, which is super helpful when you guys do that. Thank you.
Oh, which is the best. I think Lazy Links and Bubbles have been awesome at sort of giving us tips about what to do and saving us from having to look at wikis and stuff like that. They've been awesome.
But like you mentioned, the game also gives you a lot of options to figure it out yourself. So if you pick up something, you can click on it and then say recipes, and it'll tell you what you can use it for. And so you know right off the bat, okay, I need to hang on to this or I can drop it. Because so many times in games where you loot, literally in this game, you can loot just about everything.
Yes.
And so often in games, especially games like Fallout and things, I find myself carrying around so much junk that I don't need.
Me to a T.
But I'm afraid I'm going to need it at some point because I don't know what it's used for. And so I think that helps alleviate that kind of anxiety I have from that. And so those are all really good things.
I feel like that we do is you're constantly using the resources that you gather. You know what I mean? Like you'll go and gather a bunch of wood. Well, you're going to need that for the campfire anyways. You're going to need that for, to make arrows anyways. So I feel like you're carrying around less useless stuff and more often going through the materials that you're gathering because you need them on a consistent basis.
Yeah. And the fact that you can scrap items instead of just dropping them or throwing them away helps a lot. Right. Because even if you find items that are duplicates of something you already have, or it's something that you just don't need at all, oftentimes you can scrap it and get items that you are going to use. You'll get iron, or you'll get wood, or you'll get stone, or something that you're going to use. So that's a really good game mechanic as well.
Agreed. And like I said, that without spoiling anything of where we've gotten so far, because depending on whether or not you've watched the videos that we have on the YouTube page so far, or depending on whether or not you have you've played the game yourself, like we don't want to spoil where we are in the game so far, but we've had a ton of fun with it. Much like the forest, there are some laugh out loud moments. We're constantly, laughing about the situations that we get ourselves in, and there have been some really interesting moments, some of them of a technical nature, that have led to a lot of laughs. So it's a game that I was a little worried when we were wrapping up the forest that we wouldn't have something as fun to immediately jump into, and 7 Days to Die has proved to be very, very fun in the time that we've spent with it so far.
Absolutely. It's different than the forest, like we stated before, but it's still a similar feeling that you have of dread. Like there's always something waiting for you around the corner. And so it like you said, it's a lot of fun, and it provides a lot of really great moments. So definitely take a look at it if you haven't watched it. We pre-record a lot of the videos that we do, a lot of the episodes that we do. And so I'm not sure when this will actually come out. And so, like you said, I don't want to give too much away on where we are. But we're getting further in the game, and we're finding that the further we get in the game, it doesn't necessarily get easier.
No.
So,
no, definitely not. I mean, you get better at it, but it does not get easier. So yeah, stay tuned for many, many more videos of 7 Days to Die on the Co-op Critics YouTube page. So and that's going to wrap up this particular party chat conversation. So if you like this video, please click like and subscribe to our YouTube page. And we will be back again next week with more games conversation.